In this lecture, I'll give you an overview of the OSI model and how it relates to Wireshark. The Open Systems Interconnect, or OSI model, is a way to visually depict how data is transferred across networks and how applications send communication from one node to another. The OSI model includes 7 layers. These 7 layers operate in order, meaning that data travels from the application layer to the physical layer, or vice versa, depending on the direction of the data flow. At each layer, information is added or removed, again depending on the direction of the data. But don't worry too much about that right now. We'll cover that in a minute. First, let's talk about each layer. The first layer is the physical layer. This layer depicts the physical medium of transmission. And this could be an Ethernet cable or a fiber optic cable, even a wireless signal. Any medium that transmits the ones and zeros from one node to another is located at the physical layer. The second layer is the data link layer. This layer, data is assembled and disassembled into frames. At this layer, we also see media access control, or MAC addresses, introduced. This is also the layer where devices like bridges and switches lie, and protocols such as Ethernet and token ring also live at this layer. The third layer is the network layer. This layer is responsible for encapsulating and decapsulating packets. It adds source and destination IP addresses to the data that traverses the network. So routers live at this layer, and protocols such as IP also live at this layer. The fourth layer is the transport layer. This layer adds ports and socket numbers to the data to allow the data to be read by the correct process on the receiving or transmitting node. Protocols such as TCP and UDP live at this layer. The fifth layer is the session layer. Now this layer is responsible for creating a communication session between two nodes, and then also closing the communication channel when the channel is no longer needed. And protocols such as NetBIOS live at this layer. The sixth layer is the presentation layer. This layer is responsible for compression and encryption of data. And finally, the seventh layer is the application layer. This is the layer where data has been sent over the network is sent to the application. It's important to note that applications do not live at the application layer, but rather protocols for transmission. So for example, HTTP is a protocol that lives at the application layer. Browsers such as Chrome and Firefox use HTTP, but do not themselves live at the application layer. So that's a quick overview of the OSI 7-layer model. Now, why is that important? Since Wireshark is a protocol analyzer, it can actually read and decipher the information from layer 1 to layer 7. As you can see by this screenshot, this is a packet detail pane of a DNS query. And Wireshark segments the detail pane by the OSI layers. As you can see, with the first 2 lines indicate layer 2 data link layer data. Also notice the source and destination MAC addresses here. The next line depicts the network layer. As you can see, IP addresses are presented here. The next line depicts the transport layer. And like I explained earlier, this layer helps with application-to-application communication by implementing ports and socket numbers. Finally, the last line is the application layer data. And this is often referred to as the payload of the packet. So let's talk about a concept called encapsulation and decapsulation. When 2 nodes want to communicate with each other, the data goes up and down the OSI layers. In this example, node 1 is initiating communication. The application generates a payload that it wants to send to node 2 and then sends it down the layers. Encapsulation means that at each layer some data is added. For example, source and destination IP address are added at layer 3, and source and destination MAC addresses are added at layer 2. When that data gets to layer 1, it is transmitted across the wire as ones and zeros. When the data reaches node 2, each layer strips the encapsulated data from node 1 and passes the information up the OSI model until the payload reaches the application layer. So I hope this helps you understand how networks work a little better. In the next section, I'm going to show you how to install Wireshark on several different operating systems.